album.
You guys dropped Blue Cheese as your first single, is that correct?
Yeah.
What was
Yep.
that reaction like when that hit the streets?
It was confusing. It was puzzling. People didn't understand what was going on with that. I would say the best part of that first introduction was just that everybody loved the beat. Period. You know what I'm saying? The beat was just slamming. You know, clubs was playing it. They was playing in their cars, but people didn't really grasp the personalities, you know, that was on that record. They didn't understand what was being said. They couldn't put it together. You know, they was just going, you know, they was just moving around to it because the beat was fly. It took a little while for people to really, really catch on. And mind you, at that time that we came out, De La Soul was out too. So, you know, that whole native tongue crew was out there. So it almost appeared that, or I guess people took it as we might be down with them. And we weren't, because, you know, our music was subliminal. You know, a lot of the messages that we put in the records they were subliminal messages. So, you know, people didn't catch it as quick. But as time went on and we started doing interviews and we started traveling around, we started doing shows, and, you know, they started catching on, and it caught on to the point where it became a #1 record. You know, we did what we had to do with that record. And I'm grateful for that being my first single, you know, my first commercial single. It, you know, it's etched in stone. You know, that's part of the legacy right there.
Right. How did life change for you after receiving so much radio play and video play and getting known national-wide? How did life change for yourself after the success of that single?
Well, after the success of Blue Cheese, you know, we were still on the path. It wasn't until we came out with that second single that, you know, everything started really, really, you know, going as we dreamed, you know, as we dreamt it. So what happened was Blue Cheese got us some notoriety, got us a lot of notoriety, you know. People loved the video, you know, especially because it was a kiddie video, you know, it had colors, it was bright, you know. That got us some notoriety with, you know, shows such as Martin, you know, because back in the day, you know, everybody was on that color, you know, especially coming from New York. We was Cross Colors, you know. Cross Colors was like one of our main sponsors. You know, they would just give us gear all the time, so that's what we was in all the time. And that's how we caught wind of Martin. The show caught wind of us. If you look at Martin's show, which a lot of people, you know, just a reminder, yeah, we got a poster up in there. So that was a changing factor for us, because now all our peers and family and friends are seeing our poster up in Martin. So that was a real big deal. That was a big changer. And then from there, you know, it just became your regular hip hop group on the road, traveling, going places that they never been before. You know what I mean? Going overseas, you know, experiencing different, you know, foods. You know what I mean? It's experiencing different cultures. So that was the difference. That's what changed up for us. You know, we're not these kids from the projects no more. Just hanging out on the block and, you know, and never leaving your perimeters. You stuck somewhere. We weren't like that. We traveled. We had limousines come pick us up. We moved around. We were on planes almost every other day, you know. So it became a faster pace and a more, you know, cultural, experience. We got to see a whole lot that we wouldn't have seen, you know, if we didn't catch those records and catch that deal.
Right. Your album ended up dropping, I believe, the fall of 1991. What do you remember most about that time, and what were the critics saying when that album finally came out?
Oh, the album itself was anticipated because of the single. People, you know, they really wanted to know what these kids from Staten Island, you know, what are they really, really about? So, and I remember that when that album came out, you know, we were actually touring. So we were doing a East Coast tour. So we went all the way down to Florida to come back up to New York. You know, it was a college tour. And and on that tour it was U.M.C's, it was Main Source, it was Jazz and Jay-Z, Akinelli, Nas. So we all had the two of us, you know what I mean? And we was doing that whole East Coast, Midwest, West Coast tour. So while we on this tour, you know, the single is bubbling, you know, and the album is dropping. But by the time we get off this tour, we're coming back from the West Coast and we get back to New York. That's when it was over. Like, we were all over the place. You know, the record was blowing. You know, there was no place that we could walk without people knowing us. It was just, but that tour had a lot to do with it. You know what I mean? Because we did so much radio. We did so many shows. The name was getting out there. Staten Island was getting known. You know what I'm saying? So all of that worked in favor for us because, like I said, by the time we got back to New York, it was blown out the water. You know, Fruits of Nature was all over the place. The sales was crazy. You know, the phones ringing off the hook. You know, now we're getting paid shows as opposed to promotional shows. Yeah, that was a big change right there when that album dropped.
You guys dropped your second single, the classic One to Grow On. What kind of momentum did you see when you guys dropped that second single?
Well, when we dropped One to Grow On, that's when our clout, you know, level rose. Why? Because now, not only is the beat dope, but people understand what we're saying this time. You know what I'm saying? It was a good message in the record. Like I said, we was all about colors anyway. So that the second video was all about colors as well. But the content was more, you know, understood by the masses. And that's what, you know, really, really got us over. And like I said, you know, you can't go wrong with a jazz sample. You can't go wrong with a jazz beat at all. And that just took us to a whole new level of production and a new level of respect from the audience, you know? Right. And I mean, even that, we visited Soul Train 2 times, you know what I'm saying? Off of first Blue Cheese, second One to Grow On, and then there's another one further down the line. I think we're the first group that did Soul Train 3 times, the first rap group. You understand what I'm saying? Right. So, you know, Don Cornelius, he really appreciated what we had. He really, you know, he applauded us for what we did coming from Staten Island, New York. Right. And yeah, so that was a fun ride. Once to Grow On came out and the shows were phenomenal. You know, we did the shows with all the best at the time. So, you know, it put us right where we were supposed to be.
What kind of reaction did you guys get from Never Never Land?
So the funny thing with Never Never Land was we couldn't decide if that was going to be a single or not. You know, like we're very animated, you know what I mean? And a record like Never Never Land is so different at the time. At that time, it was a different kind of record. You know, that's when we came out with Kids on our record. And then, you know, a lot of people attempted it and done it. But I would like to say that we were really, really one of the first that really, really had a dope record with Kids on it. You know, kids responded to us, speaking back to us. We had a whole choir. We brought a choir in, a kids choir. And, you know, we sat with them. We kicked it with them. We wrote out the rhymes. We appointed them. You know, we told them what they were going to be saying. And, you know, it was fun working with the kids and all that. But the overall response for that record, as far as what I saw, was it was before its time. You know, it was a well put together record. It made sense, and it was just a whole different, you know, outlook on it. You know, outlook on life. You know, people tend to not, you know, think that kids really have depth. You know what I mean? And content, you know, or what they really be thinking about. You know, they think that all kids are just busy being kids. Nah, not all the time. Sometimes kids have, you know, they get their little problems, their hiccups, their ups and downs too. So in that record, we was trying to express, you know, just alleviating kids of those tough times and, you know, welcome them to, you know, a easier way of being, you know, you don't want to see kids get stressed out too young, you know, like those are some of the things that we face nowadays. You know, you got kids who can't be kids, you know, they have to man up, woman up, you know, at a young age, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So the approach on that record was really, you know, to ease the child, you know, to ease their brain, ease their mind, and let them know that, you know, there's no worries. It's all going to be good. You know what I mean? Just take your time and grow, you know, and, you know, watch everything around you and soak it all up and take it all in.
Very dope. If I can say, you guys were one of the first groups to use Wu-Tang references before even Wu-Tang. Can you take us back to the origin of using words like Shaolin to represent Staten Island and how you guys were the first to use those references?
Well, basically, Wu-Tang was just a way of being, a way of living. You know, it wasn't really a rap style. You know, it was just how we were on Staten Island. We're from the grain. You know, I'm from Stapleton and Staten Island, and you know, my man Pop the Brown Hornet, which I'll elaborate on a little more down the road. But it was Pop the Brown Hornet. It was Shaheem the Rugged Child. It was RNS, KD, you know, myself, Haas G, you know what I mean? And a few more from Stapleton. So that was the core right there. So that's, Wu-Tang was the style, you know, it came from, there was a drink that we used to make called Wu Juice, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, all of that was just our bubble, our culture, what we were, you know, developing at the time. So more or less, by the time the group Wu-Tang came out, you know, it was, RZA went and turned it into a group, you know? So it wasn't really a group at first. It was just a way of being, you know what I'm saying? And that's really how that came out. So when we made reference to it, I said, you pass the microphone to the U.M.C. Haas, Wu-Tang flow on the board. So that was my style, you know what I mean? That's how I was moving. I was moving like a Wu-Tang warrior, you know, a champion, you know what I mean, with darts, with lyrics and all of that. So that was the reference that I was meaning when I said it on the on our album. And it just became something that RZA turned into a group, a 9-man group, you know what I'm saying? And next thing you know, it became Wu-Tang Clan. So now, you know, they ran off with that, and that's the name of the group now. But like I said, overall, it was just a way that we were being. It's the way that we were, you know, personified as and acting as, and, you know, our style and our movements. That's what that all was about.
Gotcha. When it was all said and done, were you pleased with that debut album? Was there something missing? Was everything there? Is there something you could tell us that may have possibly could have happened? MC joining some production from somebody else? Did everything turn out the way that Haas G planned it for that debut album?
That album was, as far as I'm concerned, a very, very well put together album. I was really, really happy with the album. There's certain issues that I wasn't happy with, and it had nothing to do with the album. You know what I mean? You know, it goes more into the business side of it all, you know, and the label side of it all. But the album itself was excellent. It's a timeless piece of work. It's that type of nostalgic album that you could go back to today, you know, and you could bump that album today, and you could go song for song, and I wouldn't have done nothing different. You know, I was very, very pleased with the production. I was pleased with the lyrics. I was pleased with the content, the delivery, and that album spoke volumes to me, you know, and I love it to this day. I get mad hands up, you know what I mean, on that album this day, you know, from people that you would not even thought ever heard it, you know. So, you know, I'm very, very pleased with that album.
When it was all said and done, going into the second album, what was your relationship like with Wild Pitch, and what adjustments did you make from the first album going into the sophomore album, Unleashed?
So So this is where it thickens. So like I said, remember, you know, when you're kids and you're starting off and you're doing an album, your first album, and you don't really have a worry in the world, you know, all you're going to express is all those good ideas and good thoughts and good experiences that you've been through, you know. So that's what Fruits of Nature, once again, I reiterate, fun. That's what the album was supposed to be about. So now you drop an album, you drop 2 singles, you're blowing up all over the place, you're getting paid shows, right? But now your record label doesn't want to renegotiate your contract after they just signed a $6 million deal contract with a major label, and they still want to keep us pinned down without, you know, upping up the ante for us after you got your deal based on what we did. You know, now you start getting disgruntled. You start getting a little tight. And don't forget, we're still kids. We're still young. So we're not in that frame of thinking where, well, this is just business. We're in that frame of thinking like, yo, if you don't do something good for us, you know what's going to happen, right? You know what I'm saying? That's how we're thinking, because it's like, I don't care about this fun, whatever, man. Yeah, that's the album, but guess what? We ain't no funny dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we know money. When it comes to money, we should have some, you know, just as much as you get, you know, not as much, but you need to piece us off a little bit better than what you're doing for us now. So granted, you know, and I'll put this out there. We did that first album for under $20,000. You understand what I'm saying? Now, that's got to be some incredible workmanship to come up with an album under $20,000. You know what I'm saying? So now you get this $6 million deal, and he don't want to renegotiate for the second album. You know, holidays are coming around. He don't want to give advances. You know what I'm saying? You know, it was just all kind of nonsense going on. So, you know, now this is when we become disgruntled. This is when we become angry. This is when we become, yo, wait a minute. You want me to do what? For what? And you ain't, nah, I ain't doing nothing. We ain't doing anything until you settle off with us. You know what I mean? Settle up with us the right way. So that took a while. You know, Stu tried to really like, you know, dry us out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like I said, holidays would come. We can't get no advances. You know, the sales didn't even reflect yet. You know what I mean? Because it takes time for sales to reflect. You might say gold or you might say platinum, but the checks won't come in till like the following, you know what I mean? The following year. So that being said, when it's time to do the second album and we already, you know, our heart is broken and, you know, we're not satisfied, we can't eat, you know, we can't buy presents for people, you know, loved ones, we can't even, you know, we barely had a pot to piss in ourselves, you know, at that time the second album was to be done. You're supposed to, you know, give us an advance so we could be comfortable and then we could go into the studio working on the second album, you know, nice and comfy. So by the time we had to do the second album, because we was obligated, everything just came out, you know, bizarre. It's just bizarro, just crazy, just twisted, just, you know, you heard a lot of the emotions in that album. You know, you really heard them. And they weren't pleasantries neither. You know, there's real, you know, just effed up emotions and discontent and unhappiness and anger and bitterness. And so that's what ended up happening with that album. People like to say that, you know, U.M.C is actually, because the music was changing and the artist was coming out getting hard, like, you know, Das Effects, Lords of the Underground, you know, that's when the whole West Coast NWAs and all of that, everything was hardening up, you know what I mean? And they thought that that's what we were trying to do. That's not what we were trying to do. What we were doing was doing what we were living. We were spitting what we were living on the records, you know what I mean? It just so happened it was at a darker time. And the beats were darker now, you know, and that's just basically it. That's the story behind that. So, you know, the album, you know, I mean, the world knows the album didn't do nearly as good as the first album did. But it still got some burn. It got some good, you know, recognition. If not for anything else, but for the quality production, the production of quality. You know what I mean?
Right.
The quality of the production, pardon me. and you know that helped catapult me even more into being a producer. You know, not just for the U.M.Cs. Now I could produce for other artists that are out there. You know, so yeah, that album was a real dark time. You know, and like I said, it was just based on the fact that we wasn't happy. The label owner didn't know how to make his artists happy. You know, that's the bottom line. You know, you got an artist that's making you money. You know what I mean? You want to keep them happy, you know, to an extent. You don't, you know, give them what they need, what they want. Not even what they want. At least give them what they need. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't even giving us what we needed. So, that left a bad taste in our mouth. And that's why that album came out like that. And that's just the bottom line to that. That's exactly why that album came out like that. So, you know, your emotions are a real serious thing. Some people wear they heart on their sleeve, as they say. You know, some people are good with hiding it, keeping it all covered up, you know. But we were the type that, we're going to show you our unhappiness. We're going to show you, you know, it's going to reflect in our creativity and our music.
Right. When that album dropped, what kind of criticism or praise did you get from that album? What were your peers saying? What was the magazine saying? What do you remember about that time after the album came out?
Well, as I said, I'll reiterate, there was a whole lot of, just people disheartened. You know what I mean? They really couldn't grasp what we were doing. They didn't understand, like, why they were sounding like that. Now they coming out sounding like this. That's too hard of a switch. You know, people don't understand that. That's not the U.M.Cs that I like. You know what I mean? Where's One to Grow On? Where's Never Neverland? Where's the new blue cheese? You know what I'm saying? That's what they were looking for. And that's a bit of advice I would give, some of the up and coming groups today, or artists or whatever, solo, dolo, female, male. You know, when you come out with something that's working and it's dope and that's what the people love you for, you know, stay on that tangent. You know what I mean? You can elevate within the realms of that, but stay on that tangent, because, you know, you do a whole 180 or whatever you want to call it, 360, 180, whatever, and come out with something that's totally complacent or from anything that they remember you from, you know, they'll disassociate themselves with you. You know what I mean? Real quick, because it's almost like it was a facade. You know what I mean? Now you're switching up, and that's not really, you know, what they want to hear. They love you for who you were, for how you started out. Yeah, there's room for growth, but not that drastic of a change, you know?
Right.
So that's a bit of advice there. But yeah, we were getting criticized a lot, you know. Like I said, people say, oh, all of a sudden now they trying to be hard. You know what I mean? Look at these kids. They was colorful. Now they dingy. You know what I mean? Yeah, their colors. Nah, I don't see the colors no more. I don't see no smiles on their faces no more. We go to shows. You know, that's when you start getting tested now, because this album is so different. So now all that stuff that we were not trying to attract, we started attracting. You know what I mean? A lot of the negative stuff. You know what I mean? The fights, the arguments, the beefs. You know, all of that started coming. And I guess that goes to show that, you know, if you portraying yourself a certain kind of way, that's what you're going to attract, you know? And that was a lesson learned. You know, that was one to grow on for me.
No pun intended, right?
No pun intended.
So what eventually happened to your deal with Wild Pitch, and where did the U.M.Cs find themselves?
Say that one more time.
What eventually happened to your deal with Wild Pitch, and where did the U.M.Cs find themselves around this time?
Okay. So basically, after that second album, you know, it lacked with success. It was a freeze. So they decided to freeze our contract. And so now we was definitely ass out. We couldn't do anything now. Now we're just sitting at home, busted and broke. You know what I'm saying? Even the shows was slowing down. We was living off of shows. You know, we still were able to live off of some shows, but, you know, they were scarce. Now it's far and few between, you know? And So what ended up happening was, we just waited we waited the contract out until it dissolved, and that was it. So, and that took a few years. We couldn't go to any other label. Nobody could buy us out. Not to mention, there was some altercations with the president of the record label. You know what I mean? So we couldn't. We was asked out. We couldn't. Nobody wanted to touch us. Nobody wanted to pick up our contract. EMI disowned us. You know what I'm saying? So we just had to sit there and actually weather the storm. And, that's when we went and got jobs and turned back into the regular, Mr. Joe on the street. You know what I'm saying? Doing what we had to do to survive. Fortunately, I'm an electrician by trade. So that's what I went to school for. So I was able to, still make, decent money. And I fell back on my trade as an electrician. And Kim fell back on, his skills as well. So, we did the working life thing for a little while, But, once a musician, always a musician. The love of it is always going to be within you. It's not going to go anywhere. And so I didn't lose love for, music. I didn't lose love for the industry itself. I lost love for certain industry practices, and it was a learning situation for me. So, while I was doing my electrical, I still got equipment. So, I figured this is a perfect time for me to, let's wait this season out. Let whatever's going to happen, but I'm still going to perfect my craft. I'm still going to make beats. I'm still going to come up with joints. You know what I mean? Let me get the right joints for the right time. Let me keep up with the pace. You know what I'm saying? And when I'm ready, I'm going to shoot back in the way I want to shoot back in. And that's eventually what happened. It took a little time, but, I said I was ready. And I just shot right back in as a producer. You know what I mean? I put everything else behind me. I cleared the air. I cleared my system. You know what I mean? I got focused, and I started actually producing for artists that weren't, U.M.Cs.
Right.
And that was easy to do too, because remember, we were U.M.Cs, so we toured with a lot of artists. So I had a reach. You know what I mean? I could reach out to any artist that was out there. So, once they knew I was doing beats, that's what opened up. Everybody's ears started opening up again. You know what I mean? All that stuff that happened with Wild Pitch, it was already dissolved. It was pushed to the back. Nobody, like they say, you're only as good as your last. You know what I mean?
Right.
So all of that was back there. The first thing I'm going to do is I got to sell a beat to somebody. You know what I mean? And that's going to be the start of my production career in the industry.